Hey everyone, it's Blake here from ChessPathways.com, and in today's openings video, we're going to be discussing the Tennison Gambit. Now, the Tennison Gambit is an opening I hadn't really heard of before one of our Chess Pathways members requested me to make this video. And by the way, if you're not a Chess Pathways member, make sure you visit ChessPathways.com and get signed up so you don't miss any content. But it turns out there's a good reason for that. This opening is not very popular for white these days, almost nobody plays it, it's certainly never seen in high-level chess. And this opening begins with knight f3, d5, and now pawn to e4. I suppose it could also be reached from a Scandinavian defense. That would be after e4, d5. Of course, white should take on d5, but I guess white could play knight f3 and transpose to the Tennison Gambit. So what's white's idea in this opening? After playing pawn to e4, this pawn is hanging, of course. But if black takes this pawn, white's going to play knight g5, maybe try to generate some pressure on the f7 pawn, and maybe just try to win this pawn back by playing knight c3 and knight takes e4. So let's take a look. After d takes e4, knight g5, that was white's idea. If black just plays knight f6 here to defend the pawn, then comes bishop c4, white gets to attack the f7 pawn. Black should play e6 to stop it, but now after knight c3, it becomes clear white's going to get the pawn back. That's really one of the whole ideas here of the Tennison Gambit. So after knight c3, bishop e7, knight takes e4, both players castle, and black can play here knight c6, trying to clamp down on the d4 square to stop white from playing d4. Maybe white could have considered playing d4 last move before castling, but it's definitely understandable to want to tuck the king away before you do that. So here, white could consider playing c3, still trying to play d4, but now black could just take on e4 and grab the center themselves with e5. This grabs some central space and also opens up this light-squared bishop that was trapped in by the e6 pawn. So white probably has no advantage here. If white has one, it's very small. White could consider playing pawn to f4 here, trying to open this rook and get it into the game. I thought that might be an interesting try to spice up the game and go for some attack on the king side. Instead, in this particular game I found, white just played d3, and now after knight a5, black gets to trade off this light bishop. Black has control of the center, and really black's doing just fine here. And remember, this is almost a best-case scenario for white. White's plan worked, they got their pawn back. Even here, though, white's position is not amazing by any means. Now, it turns out black might have an even better way to play against the Tennison Gambit. So let's go back here after pawn to e4. Instead of trying to hang on to this pawn after d takes e4, which should definitely be played, after knight g5, black can instead play pawn to e5, just give the pawn back right away, since it's hopeless trying to hold on to it. And after knight takes e4, now pawn to f5. Black just gives that pawn back right away and takes the full center. So if you're black and you play against the Tennison Gambit, this is probably the line I recommend playing. I think black gets a very nice position here. I pulled a couple sample lines here just to see how the game might go. So knight g3, bishop e6. We're going to first look at just playing knight c3 and developing here. Then comes knight f6. And white's position is already pretty difficult. White's really cramped here. They don't have very many good squares for their pieces. Look at this bishop, for example. It can't come to c4. Coming to b5 gets hit with c6. We're going to see later how white might consider doing that. But what else can white do here? d3 looks very passive. White has tried d4 here, sacrificing a pawn yet again. The idea being after e takes d4, white has almost the exact same idea as when they played e4. They're going to play knight b5 and try to win the pawn back. Now, black could try to defend this pawn with pawn to c5, but they don't really have to even do that. Black could just play knight c6 and develop a piece while they defend that pawn. And bishop f4 is not going to work out so well. That might have been one of white's ideas when they went for this, but just knight d5 attacks the bishop and defends c7. So white could try here bishop g5, bishop b4 check, just trying to force white to play c3 and trade this pawn off so black can stay up a pawn once and for all. c3, takes, castle long. Definitely black's better here. This is just one game I found in my database. It's hard to imagine this is a very, high-level chess game because white's not playing very well, I don't think, but it's hard to find master-level games in the Tennison Gambit, as you can imagine. Let's take a look at how white could try to improve on this. So coming back after the Gambit was accepted, we have this position, d takes, knight g5, e5, knight takes e4, f5, knight g3, bishop e6. Instead of just playing knight c3 and going for this dubious pawn sacrifice with d4, white has tried here to play bishop b5, which is very rarely a good move when it just gets hit with c6. But white just wants to drop this bishop back around, try to trade light-squared bishops, possibly try to expose black a bit on the light squares. So we'll see how this could go. Let's say pawn to c6, bishop a4, knight f6, knight c3. Just normal development for now. White plays bishop b3, trying to trade off this bishop, just like I said. Takes, takes. Now f5 is loose, but simply g6. It's not very hard to guard that pawn. And any idea here like h4, h5 looks pretty dubious here from white. Black just has full control of the center, and it's hard to imagine that white is even equal here, let alone being better. I think black has the more comfortable game. I found one game that went down this path. White did play d4 here, trying to fight back in the center. And after e takes d4, queen takes, bishop c5, black gets to develop that bishop with tempo. Queen c4, just stopping castling for the time being. That is one downside for black to playing f5 early, but it's a pretty small downside. Black was just able to play here queen e7 check. White found nothing better than just retreating the queen. Queens come off the board. And you'll get this pretty uninspiring position. We have 3-on-3 pawns on both sides, no pawn majorities, equal minor pieces, equal material. I would just say black's probably still a bit better just because they have more development and they don't have doubled pawns. Just to cover some early deviations, my guess is that part of the appeal of the Tennison Gambit when this first became popular back around 100 years ago is that after takes knight g5, I'm guessing players with black were trying to be greedy here and playing f5, really trying to make sure they hold on to their pawn. But now white's idea has a bit more merit. Now after bishop c4, black is really weak here on the light square. So black should not go for this. There's no need to be greedy. Black gets a more than comfortable position just by returning the pawn and grabbing the center. Just like with most gambits, this can also be declined. In this position here, black could just play e6 or c6, transposing to the French defense or the Caro-Kann defense respectively, but there's really no need to decline this gambit because as we've seen, black gets a pretty good position just by accepting it. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. Please make sure you visit chesspathways.com and get signed up. It's totally free, only takes 5 seconds, and I will send you a free move-by-move guide to chess thinking when you sign up. Let me help you become a master and achieve your chess goals. I look forward to seeing you there.